Everybody, it's Dave from Clean Pro Supply and Resin Force Products. We're going to talk about carbon monoxide detectors and monitors. So every single propane grinder that you have on a job site, you should always have one of these or a similar model on the grinder itself and or on your person. So this specific unit, it's called a SensorCon Inspector carbon monoxide monitor. These are available on Amazon for about $155. But every single grinder in the field, you should be monitoring carbon monoxide somehow. The way this works is just a power button and then a max button. You can set different settings to make different alerts basically, but in a nutshell, it's just you turn it on, it zeroes itself out, do that outside in fresh air, and then that's going to calibrate it. And then that way, if you have it mounted to your machine, this is a good spot to put it if you have a cell phone holder or something else, depending on the brand of machine you have. But with the Levinas, it's nice because you can just, this little clip here, you can open up and you can just grab onto the cell phone adapter here, clamp it on, and that way the person running the grinder can easily see and monitor the levels of carbon monoxide. The nice things about these units are you can not only do you have a digital readout of parts per million, which is ppm. ppm stands for parts per million, but there's also little LEDs. The higher the number gets, the higher the levels of carbon monoxide get, the more these little LEDs will flash. They're little red LEDs, and it's kind of like a little strobe. So when the numbers are really low, it won't even flash at all. But once you get above about, I think 30 or 50 ppm, they're gonna start blinking very, very slowly, but that's not really a danger zone. 50 is okay. You still wanna monitor it and keep an eye on it, but if you're running around 50, you're fine. But the higher it gets, the faster these are gonna start flashing. So train all of your staff, all of your employees, or just anyone else that you're working with that as an indicator or a signal that if you start seeing these red lights flashing like crazy, like a strobe light, big warning sign. Look at your ppm and compare that to there's a card that comes with this. Compare the number on the readout to the card to see what the danger zone is. How much of risk is there based on how much carbon monoxide this is picking up? Is it a lot and you need to vacate immediately? Do you need to maybe vacate the entire building, get everybody out? If it's really severe, you may have to. If it's moderate, maybe you just have to increase airflow, increase circulation. But use the numbers on the readout, compare it to the card that come with it, and make sure everyone is properly trained on safe levels of carbon monoxide from your emissions of your propane concrete grinder. If you're in a tight confined space in a commercial building with no ventilation, or just limited ventilation, you absolutely need to keep an eye on this because you could kill yourself, you could kill your employees, you could kill other people occupying that building. So very, very important, very crucial. Every single propane grinder that goes onto a job site should have some sort of way to measure carbon monoxide. This is the most common that I see a lot of contractors using, and it's very, very simple to use, about 150 bucks. If the levels of carbon monoxide exceed what's safe to be in and around and breathing, then definitely make sure you vacate, open up doors, windows, increase ventilation. Sometimes commercial buildings like this building will have roof vents so you can open up, turn fans on. Another thing that I highly recommend is when you do a walkthrough with a GC or a building owner as part of your safety checklist, talk about ventilation. If you're going to be using propane grinders, ventilation and airflow should definitely be part of that because they may need to turn on the roof vents while you're working. They may need to have windows or doors propped open with large air movers moving just to make sure you have adequate airflow. If the building itself already has adequate airflow and ventilation, great. But if it doesn't, then you need to make sure you are working that into the scope of your work. Have that listed on your invoice or your scope, but then also make sure you're bringing all that equipment with you and factor that into the price that you're proposing. Because if you don't have these big air movers, or they say that all the doors and windows have to stay shut for security purposes, you need to make sure that you have something in place to provide adequate ventilation. Or maybe you just can't use propane grinders at that job site. Maybe you need to use an electric grinder. But all propane grinders are going to have carbon monoxide as the emissions. You can see here, this is one of the newer Levina grinders. Over here, we have an older Levina grinder, and we have another propane grinder over here. So they're all gonna have the same emissions, and some are gonna burn better than others, but you definitely wanna monitor your levels to see what's safe. I can't urge this enough to say you need to have a monitor visible to the user. If you have people edge grinding or doing different work on that same job site in that same room, you may want to have those users also have this clipped to their belt or their shirt or their vest. Some people clip it on Some people also have it clipped to their hard hat because it will beep at you a little bit if you want to have it near your ear, if you're not wearing ear protection. But everyone does it their own way. It's totally up to you. As long as you can see it, hear it, or there may, I'm not sure if there are any, but there may be some that even vibrate, but some sort of way to signify and designate if you have unsafe levels of carbon monoxide, because we don't want anyone being at risk for carbon monoxide poisoning. If anyone's feeling lightheaded or dizzy, or even you start vomiting, or obviously if someone passes out, big concern, get that place emptied out with all personnel. And you may even have to go to the hospital to get on oxygen. And if you have any questions about carbon monoxide, reach out anytime, but it is a very real issue on every single job site that contractors have issues with all the time. And we want to make sure everyone is being safe. Dave from Clean Pro Supply, have a good one.